Your mother didn't reject you. She did something far more calculated. She trained you to need her approval like oxygen. And now, decades later, you're still holding your breath, waiting for someone, anyone, to tell you that you're enough. But here's the truth no one wants to say. She never intended for you to breathe freely. If this feels like I'm pulling back the curtain on your entire childhood, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, what's the one thing you've never been able to say no to? I read every single comment, and your truth might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's talk about what really happened. Your mother didn't abandon you physically. She was there, wasn't she? Always there. Always watching. Always ready with that look that could make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. She didn't reject you outright, because rejection is clean. Rejection sets you free. What she did was worse. She kept you close enough to need her, but never close enough to feel secure. This is what narcissistic mothers do. They create emotional hunger while controlling the only source of food. They make you starve for approval while positioning themselves as the sole provider. You became addicted to her validation because she made sure you could never get enough to feel satisfied, just enough to keep you coming back, never enough to make you feel whole. John Bowlby spent his life studying how early relationships shape our capacity for love and trust. He discovered that children who experience inconsistent caregiving develop what he called anxious attachment. But narcissistic mothers take this further. They don't just fail to provide security, they actively sabotage it. They create attachment that feels like addiction, love that feels like survival. You learned early that your mother's mood determined your worth. Good day for her meant good day for you. Bad day for her meant you disappeared. You became a human barometer, constantly reading the emotional weather in your home, adjusting yourself to match whatever she needed you to be, not who you were, who she needed. Here's how you know if this was your childhood. You could never predict her moods. One day you were her golden child, praised and paraded. The next day you were invisible, or worse, the target of her frustration. Your achievements became her trophies. Your failures became evidence of your inadequacy. She didn't teach you to trust yourself. She taught you to watch her face for cues about who you were allowed to be that day. You learned to read micro-expressions before you learned to read books. You became fluent in the language of walking on eggshells. You mastered the art of becoming small when she needed space, becoming perfect when she needed validation, becoming whatever she required to maintain her emotional equilibrium. You weren't a child. You were an emotional support system with tiny hands and a desperate heart. When you tried to pull away, even slightly, she didn't let you go. She pulled tighter. "After everything I've done for you," she'd say, "I'm the only one who truly loves you." That phrase, that sentence that sounds like love but feels like chains. She convinced you that her possessiveness was protection, her control was care, her need was your purpose. That wasn't love. That was emotional imprisonment with visiting hours. The abandonment you fear. It already happened, but not the way you think. She didn't leave your body. She left your spirit. She was physically present but emotionally unavailable in the ways that mattered. She fed your body, but starved your soul. She gave you a roof, but took away your sense of self. The abandonment wasn't her walking away. The abandonment was her staying close while making you disappear. But here's what changes everything. You weren't rejected because you weren't worthy of real love. You were controlled because she couldn't handle anyone in her orbit being independent. Your need for approval isn't a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism you developed to stay safe in an emotionally unsafe environment. You adapted perfectly to an impossible situation. The woman who should have taught you to trust your own voice instead taught you to silence it. The woman who should have prepared you for the world instead made you afraid to enter it without her permission. The woman who should have celebrated your independence instead punished it. This wasn't about you being deficient. This was about her being terrified of raising someone who might outshine her, outlive her control, or outgrow her need to be needed. Narcissistic mothers don't raise children. They raise extensions of themselves. They don't nurture independence, they cultivate dependence. They don't want you to fly, they want you to need them to carry you, forever. But you don't need her permission to heal. You don't need her acknowledgement to move forward. You don't need her approval to approve of yourself. The very thing she trained you to crave from her is the thing you can give yourself right now. Now, you don't need to have a dramatic confrontation with your mother. You don't need to cut contact or have a tearful conversation about your childhood. You need to do something far more radical. You need to parent yourself the way she never could. You need to become the mother you always needed. Start small. Make decisions without seeking anyone's approval. Choose what you want for lunch without explaining why. Set a boundary without justifying it with a dissertation. Feel your feelings without immediately questioning if they're valid. Trust your instincts without requiring external validation. These aren't small acts. These are revolutionary acts. Your mother trained you to look outward for validation because she never learned to find it within herself. She passed down her own wound, the desperate need to be seen, to be chosen, to be enough. But you can break that cycle. Every time you trust your own judgment, you're undoing years of conditioning. Every time you choose yourself without guilt, you're healing both the child you were and the adult you're becoming. The truth about narcissistic mothers is they create children who become adults seeking what they never received: unconditional love. But here's the paradox. The unconditional love you seek was always meant to come from you. Not from her, not from anyone else, from you. You are not broken because you crave approval. You are not weak because abandonment terrifies you. You are not damaged goods because you struggle to trust your own voice. You are someone who survived an environment where love came with conditions, where worth was conditional, where acceptance required constant performance. And the fact that you're still here, still seeking healing, still choosing growth, that makes you stronger than you realize. The approval you've been chasing your entire life? It was never going to come from her. She couldn't give what she never learned to give herself. It was never going to come from anyone else either. It was always meant to come from you. And the beautiful truth is this: you get to give it to yourself right now. You get to look in the mirror and say, you are enough exactly as you are. You get to mother yourself with the tenderness you never received. You get to celebrate your achievements without needing anyone else's applause. You get to comfort your failures without anyone else's judgment. You get to love yourself without conditions, without performance, without earning it, just because you exist, just because you're here, just because you're you. If you recognize yourself in this pattern and you're ready to break free from decades of emotional conditioning, I've created something that can help. It's a comprehensive guide that walks you through the specific steps to heal from narcissistic parenting without confrontation or drama, because you deserve to breathe freely, to trust yourself completely, and to love without the fear of abandonment controlling your every move. Your mother may have trained you to need her approval, but today you get to train yourself to find your worth from within. And that training? That's the most beautiful rebellion you could ever choose. That's your freedom. That's your healing. That's your victory.